So that's another one of those claims that's tricky because some people would say the Holocaust should be reserved for the Nazi elimination of the Jews and other minorities in Europe, and I'm aware of that. But by Holocaust, I just meant large scale assaults on people that resulted in millions of deaths and sometimes the destruction of entire societies. And I made the argument that I think is still compelling today that the United States was based really on three Holocausts. One was, of course, the original destruction of indigenous people, without which the United States wouldn't exist. There would be no nation of the United States without that destruction of Indian nations. The second was African slavery. We have to remember that America wasn't built with some sort of theoretically pure capitalism. Whatever you want to think, slavery is a pretty dramatic diversion from capitalist principles. But the engine of American industrial might, the way that the United States went from a primarily agricultural society into an industrial power, was of course on the backs of cheap cotton produced in the South, textiles being usually the first and most important industrial enterprise in a growing country. Well, what kept cotton cheap, of course, was African slavery. And we have to remember the real horror of slavery, even though the Trump administration would prefer we not think about this. We're talking about the destruction of societies in Africa. We're talking about the horror of the Middle Passage, and we're talking about the reality of plantation slavery. Once again, millions of people sacrificed to this economic enterprise, and entire societies destroyed, some never to recover. The third Holocaust is less obvious, but I think the U.S. role in the global South, so to speak, in the 20th century, especially the post-World War II era, where the United States supported brutal governments, often imposed through military actions that included the U.S., whether we're talking about Latin America, the most egregious examples being in Central America, whether we're talking about Southeast Asia, you're talking about the United States consolidating its economic dominance after World War II through a series of both hot and cold wars, overt proxy wars, all sorts of things, that again left entire societies destroyed. And if you count up the victims, literally millions of people who died in that era. Okay, well, that's what consolidated U.S. control in my lifetime and made us, the world's hegemon. All right, well, I think it's not inappropriate to call those holocausts and to assign responsibilities to the people and the systems that decided on those policies. And I think that's as true today as ever. What's kind of funny is that in the current regime, the Trump administration, in some ways, he's abandoned all that talk about freedom and democracy. Right. And it's much more a transactional effort for him when you talk about international affairs. I guess you could say he sort of strips away the liberal veneer over not only Democratic Party, but the old Republican Party's policies as well. Of course, that's not an endorsement of any foreign policy decisions being made, but at least there's kind of a reckoning today. This is about what we used to call, geopolitics, old power politics. How does your nation state increase its wealth and power?